We're in July, halfway through. Some places are celebrating Christmas in July because we're halfway through, and we're also halfway through for those of us who may have made resolutions in January or deciding to do something different, even if we didn't want to call it a resolution. And so it's time for me, it's time to go back in and think. It could be not just think, but explore what have been those challenges. And so the topic of light and dark and how they are intertwined, they are a cycle that just is what we're going to be focusing on this month. And today we're going to be talking about that dance of light and dark, the there's no night without day. There's no winter without spring. And that there's these cycles in our lives, and some of those are our own light and dark. And we're going to look at dark from a different perspective that Jason introduced us to as he was preparing us for the talk today. That a lot of times when we think of dark, we think of I can't see, or why is this happening to me? I'm going into a very deep depressed state, and this is taking that and bringing it out and recognizing it for what it is. So what we're going to be looking at is that light and dark are not adversaries. They are complementary to each other, and that this dance of light and dark shapes our very existence and influences all of our perceptions of the reality that we are experiencing. And when I talk about light, I'm talking about that feeling of clarity, of truth, of being able to see, and the manifestation showing in front of me right now, tangible. I can see it, I can feel it, I can hear it. And dark is not that adversary to light. It is introspection. It is mystery. It is an opportunity to be curious about what it is this is all about, because it also can be thought of as the gestation time. Just like the seed is in the soil in the dark. And in that time, we don't see anything going on. And how many times in this teaching have we been told, don't dig up that seed before it's ready to sprout? Because we can mess it up. But we'll talk some more about that. And so let's think of darkness as a time of rest and renewal. It's a time where challenges and uncertainties come into our life to nurture our creativity and growth. And that we can embrace this. When we do, we can see that light and dark are equal importance, and that we can live in that harmony. Another thing that Ernest Holmes has told us is that all of the power of the universe is with you. And he invites us to feel it, know it, and then act as though it were true. And when we embrace light and dark, when we embrace the gestation period and the manifestation, we can allow that power of the universe to be completely there. Like was said in the meditation today as we were coming out, it was feel the support of the chair beneath you. And I invite each of you right now, wherever you are, to just become aware of wherever you are sitting, you're being supported. If you stand up, you're being supported. If you sit back down, you're being supported. And that is a physical representation of the support of the universe. It is always there for us. So let's look at light and dark a little bit more. So light, when we think of light, we can see. We can feel, we have clarity, it's brightness, it's transparency, it's enlightenment, and it's truth and manifestation, and it can be a beacon that guiding our life when we bring light into, and when we're in the light, and it can bring all of our dreams into reality. And when we think of dark, I mean, there's times when I first thought about that, it's like, oh, dark is, scary, and there might be a monster under my bed or hiding in my closet, if you had those kinds of things as a kid. But for me, it was walking down into our basement, and if I heard one cricket, I was back up those stairs, whether the light was on or not, because the rest was dark, and it could be a huge monster. In reality, it was a tiny little cricket just chirping away, trying to find its friends. But it was scary. It was scary. Took a lot of courage to walk down into that dark basement. And it takes a lot of courage for us to walk into the dark of ourselves, to walk into that introspection, that time of mystery, that time of uncertainty, that time where we are the seed. There is an idea in our mind, in the mind of God, that is within our mind, that is trying to present itself. It's trying to grow. And what does a seed do once you plant it into the ground? What's the first thing it has to do once it's in the ground? It has to crack itself open. And once it cracks itself open, everything that it needs to become, the acorn to become the oak, the tomato seed to become the tomato plant, whatever it is, it's all inside, but it can't come out until it's cracked open. And so it cracks itself open. And then the first thing it does is to start putting roots down into the ground. And why does it do that? It does that so it can nurture itself, so it can feed itself, so that it can get the energy of the universe. It grounds itself in that energy, grounds itself in that support. And then is when it starts to put the shoot up into the light. It's only until it cracks itself open. And when we think of light and dark as a dance, where we dance through this, we start to feel the unity of all things. If you're familiar with the yin and yang, this is my representation behind me, or this shoulder, no, or this shoulder. Is a representation of that yin and yang, that dance. If you've ever watched a koi pond, and you see some of the fish, they'll just circle each other. And that's that circle, that cycle of light and dark playing out. It's like day follows night, and it's complementary, and light and dark coexist in harmony in creation. And when we lean into the dance rather than being fearful of either light or dark, then we start to create this dynamic existence where we can ebb and flow, and we can go with it. And we start to understand that each of them, light and dark, are partners in this life journey, and a vital role in understanding how the world is, how I work, how the universe works. Ernest Holmes captures this in saying, it's easier to read here, sorry. No, I'm not sorry. I've got eyes. Fear robs memory of happiness because it dwells upon the limitations and morbidities of the past. It robs the future of pleasurable and enthusiastic anticipation because it casts a shadow of its past into the future. It robs today of the possibility of fulfillment because it denies the good we might experience in the moment which we live. So let's look at darkness or shadow, that space within us. Because typically when that dark space, and there's a name for it, and it was first in recorded history records. It was first coined by Saint John of the Cross back in the late 16th century. He called it the dark night of the soul. And he says that in the inner stillness where meditation leads, the spirit secretly anoints the soul and heals our deepest wounds. So when we are in this space that's typically uncertainty or discomfort or a difficulty that we've had, Jason said obstacles, roadblocks, whatever it may be that is containing or suppressing or keeping that greater expression of our light from being able to shine, we can go into that dark night of the soul, and we can view it from different perspectives. We can view these challenges and these uncertainties as opportunities for spiritual growth, or we can look at it from the standpoint of fear, and we come to it from a limited view where the darkness is a dead end. I'm here. I don't know where to go. And it reflects the limitations that we feel. And there, Eckhart Tolle talks about observing any resistance to observe to the introspection that you can do when you are in this dark night of the soul. Observe your attachment to your pain. Be very alert. Observe the peculiar pleasure you may derive from being unhappy. That one hits hard. That one is like and that observe the compulsion to talk or think about it, because when I can remember long before I came into any conscious spiritual journey, I used to I was traveling a lot in my job, and I used to, like, as soon as I sat down in my seat, I got a book and I put my face in that book and just started reading, because there was a part of me, which now I understand is that inner self, that one who wanted me to heal, who would not want to talk to anybody, because God help you if you started talking to me. Because the way I used to term it is, I will barf my life all over you, because the whole flight will just be every problem that I have. I was never willing to go into solution, but I was sure willing to talk about it. So pay attention to that. If that's what I do, sorry for the graphic, but fortunately it was just words, not, you know. Anyway, so observe it, because the resistance will cease once we've named it and we are conscious of it, and then we can do something about it. Because think of yourself when you get into this, think of the darkness as a catalyst. Think of it as that opportunity that you are the seed that has been planted in fertile soil. And that the first thing you need to do is to crack open so that you can put the roots down. And in this time of fertile soil, of mystery, and the realm of all possibilities, that can we can just there's miraculous things that can happen. We can feed ourselves with curiosity, and we can feed ourselves with hope when we recognize that we are in that dark, and that it's part of a cycle. And we can remember what we teach in this teaching so often, that life is a mirror, and it reflects back to us what we are thinking, the tendency of our thoughts, the greater of our thoughts. And so anything that's outside of us, anything that's going on outside of us, if I don't like it, it's time for me to go into the dark, become that seed, find out what it is in my thoughts that is bringing that experience. And I'm not saying this because I can hear myself right now saying, yeah, but it doesn't matter what it is, it's my reaction to it. It may be somebody else who's oppressing me, who's doing something, but it's my reaction to it. And when I look at my reaction to it and what are the thoughts in my reality that are bringing this experience into my reality, I can start to shift my thoughts. I can do it. I can do it myself. I can do it with a practitioner. I can do it with some other person who I have full confidence in that rather than just spewing, I won't use the other word, rather than spewing my life on them, somebody I know that I can talk to who will be honest with me, and that's why I suggest a practitioner, because that's what we are trained to do. We're trained to hold that highest knowing of your true self, no matter what's going on in your life. And not telling you what to do, but helping you find the path to understand, to stay in mystery, to stay in curiosity, to stay in that darkness being a catalyst rather than a dead end and limiting us. That we can help you guide that. We can be that guiding light until your inner self can take over as that guiding light. And that's the dance of light and dark. Because now we come out of it and we find that we can live in harmony. We can live in harmony with this ebb and flow of our lives. So I invite you for just a moment, if you choose to just close your eyes, or if you don't want to close your eyes, just cast them down so that you're not being stimulated by all the beauty of the people online here. And just imagine yourself at the ocean on whatever beach you choose. It could be a beautiful white sandy beach. It could be a rocky beach. But you're on this beach and you're hearing and seeing the waves, the crash of the waves, the cresting of the waves coming in, and you know with certainty that that wave will retreat. And you know with certainty that another one comes in. Feel that certainty right now. Feel what it feels like to know with absolutely no doubt in your mind. You can hear, even if you aren't there, you can hear the wave crash. You can hear it recede. If you're on a rocky beach, you can see it come in and splash up. And then it all goes away. And then it comes back and splashes. And you know it will happen again. You may not know exactly how it's going to happen, but you know it will happen. And this happens even as the tide is changing. And so I invite you to come back into this moment and know that cycle, that's flow, that just happens no matter what. And actually, if you pay attention to those waves, you can tell whether the tide is coming in or going out. And that's the same thing we can do with our life. Pay attention to the cycle. And we can learn to live in harmony. What happens is when we try to struggle against natural rhythms, then we struggle in life. You know, there's times when we wish daylight would last forever. until you move, you're in the North or the South Pole and you're there and there's not even barely even a sunset. Or I won't say pole, just up in northern Alaska or anywhere in Alaska. There's that natural cycle. There's the one that I always get a giggle out of is that there's a 50% chance of rain, and those who want to go on a picnic are praying for no rain, and those who have a farm or a garden or whatever are praying for rain to water their plants. There's that cycle, that cycle of life. And if we are always saying only sunshine, no rain, no rain, what's going to happen to all the plants? Or if we say only rain, what's going to happen to what will happen? So when we align ourselves and live in harmony with with all of these natural rhythms, and that includes the dance of light and dark in our own life. And we honor it when we come into that darkness. And we recognize that rest is not a waste of time. Then we can create within ourselves balance and resilience and open the door to creativity, and we can find peace in our own space, in our own skin, so to speak. It's it's transformative. It's the fertile ground. And I just can't say enough about it. There was a number of years ago, those of you in Connecticut who were around will remember this, when I fell down a set of stairs at my house and broke the upper part of my femur. And when I was laying there on the bottom of the floor, on the bottom of the steps, and my son came running out of the shower saying, "Mom, are you okay? Go take your shower. I've got this. I'll pray myself out of it." And as he went into the shower, this, fully grown man going, "Okay, Mom, okay, okay." There's that mom voice that, we can all have. I'm sitting there going, there is no way. I prayed and prayed and prayed, and I tried to move, and I cannot even, I think I'd rather have 10 kids in a row than go through that pain of a broken femur. And what happened was, after I just accepted that this had happened to me and recognized that this was time for me to go inside. I mean, I couldn't drive for over a month. I had to relearn how to walk. Doctors were telling me because of my age, I would be walking with a cane, a minimum of a cane for the rest of my life, probably a walker. And I did ask them, please don't ever say that again. Uh, I don't need to hear that. I used that time. I used that time to go inside. Now, did I purposely fall down those stairs? No, but there was so many lessons to learn, for me to learn about myself and about how I was living my life at the time. And I was living a pretty good life. I had just began ministerial school. I'd been a practitioner for several years. The Center for Spiritual Living in Connecticut was going really well. I was one of the practitioners there. Life was good. And it was time for me to sit down and examine that life. And, there's a part of me that wants to say, and God said, yeah, it's time. Miss that step, fall down 5 stairs, land on your hip. Now, we won't break your hip. We'll just break the femur, because when you break your femur, they don't replace the hip, and it's a lot. They move. Yeah, I won't even go into it. Take time, recognize it. When something like when the darkness comes, when we realize we're in the darkness, just trust that there is something there for each and every one of us to learn. Something there. So before I end this, I just want to give us a couple of things that we can do, because a question that can be in that was in my mind and could be in yours is, so how do I train myself to embrace all the seasons of my life, both the light and the dark, the light and the shadow, especially if been a great avoider of shadow? Well, one technique is to, and I know that this is one of those words that has just gone viral and maybe has lost some of its meaning, but it's practicing mindfulness, but doing it from the perspective of, not because it's cool to do, doing it from the perspective of welcoming the present moment, paying attention to what's going on in the present moment without judgment. What this does when we start to practice this is to allow us to savor the joy. And it also allows us to sit with the discomfort as a curious observer. The discomfort's there, the pain, the grief is all there, and I can honor it now. And I can also be the observer of what's going on inside of me. And I can open myself to the lessons that are within. And there's a couple things that we can do. One is, you can get apps that will do this, or you can just set an alarm, or you can just do this is at least once a day. Just like in the middle of your day, whatever you're doing, just stop and refocus yourself and just be aware of your breathing, be aware of what is around you. Just be in that moment. And several weeks ago, Dr. Trish sent an email out to all of us suggesting that we take 2 minutes in a day, maybe at the same time every day. I think and just be peace, and just send out peaceful vibrations into this crazy world we're in right now. Again, with no judgment, and just do it. The other thing is gratitude. When we practice gratitude, when we practice it from that sense of it's not just something I need to do, but when we go deep inside and look and see what are we really grateful for, it softens our resistance. But there's an alchemy to using gratitude, an alchemy that happens, because it's really easy for me to be grateful when everything's going well. It's a lot more challenging for me to find gratitude when things are not. And that doesn't matter what is going on. The challenge for me is to be grateful all the time. And when I take that time to be conscious of it, especially if things are not going well in the moment, it shifts and lifts me. And that's the alchemy of it, because what happens is it turns that disappointment or that dark time that we're having right in that moment, and it turns it into an opportunity. It turns it into an opportunity to practice what we talk about here. Finding the God, finding the gratitude in it. And you can just take a moment and think of a time when some disappointment in your life or something didn't go the way you had planned and you had to take a different path. And what was the outcome of that path? I know for me, I can go back and look at many things in my life that I don't know what the outcome would have been if I'd stayed on the path I was on, but something happened and shifted me, and it got me to where I am today. And I couldn't see it in the moment. I couldn't even see it in the short term, but in the longer term, I can see all the dots connecting. This got me to where I am today. And so a very simple practice is to write down 3 things each night before you close your eyes to go to sleep of what you're grateful for. And I would challenge each of us, myself included, to not just put things that are easy to say I'm grateful for, but to look for what happened in this day that might have been disappointing or a down, a low point in my day. What can I be grateful for in that? And then the alchemy really starts. You start to turn that lead into gold. I could talk about this all day, but I know you all have plans. I know I do. So I'm going to close it right now, but I'm going to leave us with a quote from Debbie Ford. To live in the light of a new day, an unimaginable and unpredictable future, you must become fully present to a deeper truth. Not a truth from your head, but a truth from your heart. Not a truth from your ego, but a truth from the highest source. So I want to thank each and every one of you for being here today. I love you, and just, namaste. Thank you.